Now it has started.
Thank you, ma'am. To set the stage and forum within centralized theme, we have a panel which includes representations from higher education, from the school system, as well as the counselor who deals day and night with the stress and the pressure the students and parents are facing. So we are going to get views from all the stakeholders, and we as teachers also who constantly meet and counsel parents. So this panel discussion holds a significant relevance in paving out a way so that we are able to guide the students who come in our network. So my first question is to Aman sir. Since he represents higher education and he has been an academic leader since very long, taking care of an institution which provides various courses in the field of media, law and management. So sir, we would like to know that during this pandemic situation, how has the education system that you manage has adapted and shown agility and resilience towards the recent situation without any impact on the knowledge transfer during these days?
Thank you. Well, first I'd like to record my appreciation for the roles that all the principals have played in leading their schools. And schools are large organizations with hundreds of teachers, hundreds of staffs, and thousands of students. And it's a very difficult job. And obviously, these are very difficult times for everybody. So the principals, I'm sure, went out of their way to ensure that the schools were running smoothly. So I'd like to congratulate them for this effort and thank them for this effort. And now to the question is, how do we ensure that knowledge, that teaching goes on smoothly during the pandemic, that students don't suffer? And one of the most important things I think in this regard is to ensure that everybody's on the same page, your entire staff is on the same page, and your networks of communication, channels of communication are open and easy to access. And this could be the delivery of lectures, this could be the mentoring of students. For all of these things, the students and faculty are both very comfortable with the medium, and this will keep everybody involved and ensure that nobody gets left behind. And this is what we did really early on. We already had some of these systems in place before the start of COVID. So initially, we found that when all of this happened, we were able to hit the ground running. And over time, over the last year, these things have evolved a bit into making it more functional, more student-centric. And a lot of activities continue to go on. A lot of confidence building is there to ensure that the staff knows basically that as an organization you are stable and strong, and you will be able to survive all of this. So I think that confidence instilled in the staff trickles down to students and creates this air of positivity, which means that that the teaching learning process is facilitated. And obviously, it's not ideal. None of this is ideal. Online education being as easy as it can be at times, it leaves a lot left, especially in higher education and courses such as journalism and media. Students need a very hands-on approach. They need to go out there and make documentaries. They need to use the camera. They need to go for internships. So there's a lot that that is not covered. That was not ideal about the last year, but I think everybody realizes that we're just all trying to do the best we can, being in the same boat. So I think that is the way forward, doing the best we can with the resources we have, working on in becoming more advanced, more capable with technology, and ensuring that nobody gets left behind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your words of wisdom. We know that you are a passionate leader. Now, moving ahead, I would like to ask Ms. Seema Malik. Ma'am, what are the challenges that are faced by you during this last 1.5 years during these pandemic times, and how did you overcome this challenge?
Dr. Gautam, for me and for all the leaders in my place across the country as well as India, it was a challenge. We had never seen something like this before. It was absolutely unprecedented crisis. But we had to mitigate it. We had to get over it, get around it to be able to go ahead. The students, the teachers, everyone had to learn. The giant leap that we have taken in the last 1 year, I can tell you with experience that we had tried everything possible for the students, for the parents, for the teachers to continue to grow technologically as well as academically, pedagogically. But when, as they say, that necessity is the mother of invention. So what happened? Every single thing that was in the pipeline, which was in the to-do list, in the bucket list that we will be achieving it one day, we had to do it. And suddenly we knew how to make the best of lesson plans, how to do the best of activities, how to engage with students through quizzes, through panel discussion, through breakout rooms, and what have you. All this on a technical platform. So with the initial lull of a few days, the school was back to normal. The school had changed its way of adapting to the challenge, and we took all our teaching and learning process on a virtual platform successfully. But we didn't stop there because we continued to develop ourselves. At Salvan Public School, one of the biggest focuses, which is absolutely unrelenting and continuous, is on professional development. So time and again, we got the best of resource people from the country and from the world to tell our teachers how to continue to grow academically on the virtual platform. And we did that. Not only that, I'm very pleased to inform all my dear panelists here that we have been able to build a professional learning community in the school where teachers take onus of developing, propagating their ideas, spreading their information to the peers, colleagues, and through them to the students. So throughout the year, we have learned, and in my experience, the kind of learning that we've done, it absolutely surpasses anything that we had ever done before. So we take this challenge as an opportunity to grow further.
Thank you, Seema ma'am. So over to you, Alka ma'am. So like Ms. Seema said that there is a huge learning that the teachers, parents and students collectively have shown. And together we have overcome this new normal or new normal 2.0 in 2021. What has been your experience in this journey? While we were thinking 2020 is over, things will be fine, and we have another wave in 2021. How has been your journey as an academic leader?
Well, good afternoon to Mr. Aman Sahni, to the faculty of DME, and of course my co-panelists and the students and teachers who are here with us on this virtual platform. Now imagine I would just start, if all of us were sort of, it took us a few days. When I say hardly, 4 or 5 days before this realization stuck that we have to shift, that these unprecedented times have started and we have to shift now from physical to virtual platforms. And then, and that virtual learning options that we started hunting, we wanted one that was very effective, engaging and interactive for the students, and that realizes the true potential of the virtual education. And so began the journey with e-learning that became the norm. And let me tell you, of course, our teachers and students, they took it so well right from day one, the moment we started. And the teachers who showed initial resistance, to maybe technology, they also became so adept in handling technology that it was really, really amazing, to see them taking their lessons online. And of course, incorporating so many activities, like Seema mentioned that activities, the best of activities I have seen being incorporated in the teaching learning that happened online. And moreover, and the teachers, and in fact, no doubt, at the same vein, I would like to say that a one-odd teacher who could not adjust, to the technology had to perish also. So it is, but we were so happy, and the teachers taking to these the virtual platform, and not only that, in all schools, like Seema ma'am mentioned, even in Mayur, we laid a lot of focus, on trying to ensure that the teachers, they are professionally developed. And so as academic head, we kept our team focused, and amidst, shifting learning models, boiling levels of burnout, and the constant unknown that was lurking around. So it was like, we went from throwing darts at the wall, hoping one of them would stick to precision throws aimed right at the target. Like amidst shifting learning online and virtual models, boiling levels of burnout and constant unknowns, we asked our teachers what they needed, and we tailored the PDs, the professional development, to their needs, thereby changing the dynamics of our PD, and that really helped. Like even after, engaging, and then moreover, we had a task of engaging students who literally lost, the school that was, a meeting point for them with their peers, and of course everything around. They missed it, and then we also started working on their mental development, their social needs. Of course, we tried to compensate through the virtual platform. In fact, we have had such beautiful annual days, which, I was really, really amazed with the work that my children, my teachers, and of course, all of them, they did, and you should have seen the impact that it had. So see, we definitely initially were wondering as to what would happen, but then finally, it was, accepted virtual learning. And like mentioned by Seema ma'am, we turned this pandemic into sort of an opportunity to learn more virtually and transform and be technologically advanced. So I would say, and of course, this second onslaught of COVID that we had, it certainly shook the confidence of both adults and children a little bit. But then ultimately, what I see is that now that we've started this journey onwards on the virtual and technological advancement, so I see a bright future and a future of blended learning, and the initial inhibition that people had towards technology. And when I say people, I mean to say teaching faculty or anybody had towards that. And now you see the kind of lesson plans, the kind of activities, and the kind of, teaching learning that happens. It really makes us all feel so comfortable with this virtual mode. So I would say that we definitely shifted to virtual with a lot of resilience. And of course, we adapted and adopted the best method. And that has worked very well for all my students as well as teaching faculty. Thank you.
Thank you, Alka ma'am, for such an elaborate and beautiful answer. I'm really happy to know that your school was able to conduct the virtual annual function. So that was really amazing. So that shows the resilience of the students as well as the teachers. And like you have rightly said, how have you made the challenge into an opportunity? So with this, I would like to hand over the forum to Yogita ma'am. Uh, we would like to know your views, your challenges that have been faced by you being an academic leader, and how did you overcome them? Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, you are on mute.
Yeah.
Yes.
A very good afternoon to DME faculty. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And I'm really happy to be with all the panelists. I understand and I want to share my experience, what has happened when all of a sudden the lockdown was declared. And so my journey here, initially the challenges were a little lesser because we were already doing flipped classes and we were on Edmodo and Microsoft, we were already on. So the teachers were trained already. It's the challenge basically came from the language teachers. Hindi and English teachers, they were initially, especially Hindi teachers, they were not really, they were not very techno savvy. And so we had to arrange for some trainings for them. Initially, in the evening, we were all sitting together making new lesson plans, and we all were sitting together. So making lesson plans late night. So we would just move up for making dinner and come back and sit until late. We were all sitting together. Is this part okay? Even in one day, it's not possible to make the entire new lesson plan. You have to imbibe so many new things, include so many new things. So we were all working in the evening, late night, and in the morning, right at 7:30, we would enter the e-class and with a smile and with a fresh look, we would sit with the children. And children were a little uncomfortable because not all the families had that technology, and initially a lot of internet problems were there. But I think parents were very supportive. Some of the parents, they had qualms about it, but most of the parents, they knew that this has come. And initially we thought that it will end in 21 days. So we thought we'll be calling the children to school and we'll teach all again, and in the meanwhile we will learn it. But with time we realized this is not going to happen, and we added many new things to it. One thing that we did was, when children, they started contacting uh, me, and they were saying, ma'am, I'm not able to, I can't do it. So we started, when they said, so many of them were coming and saying, and even some of the teachers, they needed help. And domestically also in the family, when the wife and husband all were together, so there were different scenarios happening in the families. So a lot of expectations increased because most of the women folk, they were home, and there were many problems coming domestically as well. So what we started a series called I Can. When the children and the teachers were saying, I can't, we can't. So we started a series called I Can. And in take one, we did it for students. And in take two, we did it for parents. And in take three, we did it for teachers. So these series, they helped children to overcome the problems they were having, and they understood that this is the way, this is how in the VUCA world, if they have to be, so they'll have to accept this and move on. And the year, we all know how it happened. It was difficult financially. Some parents, they were having good problems, and we all understand. And we also, as school, needed money. So that also was a big challenge, I believe, that we all had. And then ultimately came a time when we were allowed to bring in students for 10th and 12th for revision classes, or for doubt clearance, and then these children, they were coming to us. That was the time that was well utilized, but that was the time where the corona got chance again to spread its roots. And then in the meanwhile came a decision by the government in the month of April that 10th examinations, board examinations will not take place. Children again were in state of confusion. They were coming to us, the challenge how we, the challenge that we were facing, they wanted immediate answer, how the result will be made. The good children, especially those who were working very, very hard, they had real questions, because in pre-boards, usually all the principals will agree and they understand. In pre-boards, we make a real good paper, and then the marking is also not very liberal. So we see and we ensure that the children, they know that even the minutest of the problem is sorted, and this kind of answer is expected. Please start writing like that. So in pre-boards, we all understand how we make, what kind of paper do we set. So some of our intelligent teachers, they decided that in some questions, especially in maths, what we did in online pre-board, the same question was given, first pre-board. Second pre-board, same question was given, online again. Third pre-board was within the campus, and same question was given again. So in first two pre-boards, the children, some of the children, they scored well in that question. But when physically they were sitting in the school, they were not able to attempt that question. So we got to know who are the children who need some different kind of support. When you ask whether were you cheating, did you take help of your elders during examination? Some of the children, they don't switch on the cameras. So technology is very good. We were able to enter their houses, but they are also smart. They are our students only. So they knew how to break this protocol. So they were hiding behind the off cameras. So that's how we were able to find some students who needed help in maths and science and social science. Hindi and English teachers were regularly calling them individually. We were not calling them all together because of the COVID reasons. And when the CBSE announced the formula for grade 10, yeah, I am in many groups of principals and got to read that there were problems that were coming up with the formula, the reference year matching the result, and we know what has happened. And now when 12th, 10th was still fine because they will come to us only in 11th. But when we have to decide for the future of children and they have to go for college, the amount of tension, the anxiety that they have is very different. Parents were anxious. They were calling me, ma'am, now what? I mean, though they were happy because we all understand life is always, considered more when it comes to any exams, be it board exam or be it anything. Life is always above board exams. The teachers are not completely vaccinated. The students are not vaccinated. So how can we take such a big risk when we know what has happened in wave 2? So these parents, they were asking if we also have a reference here this time, and will we also be, especially children who were working very hard. N number of times, or whenever some decision was declared that CBSE exams will start from May 4th or any other. So these children, they were not stopping. I mean, they were continuously studying. They did not take a chance of even a day. So they were not getting a break. And they were expecting good result. So they were some of them were pretty disappointed, and they asked, ma'am, sab waste ho gaya. So I said, Bacha, nothing has been wasted. Something that you've gained is your knowledge, and that is going to remain with you. 12th is not end of life. And any decision that any government would take in this situation, they will not be able to please everybody. So maybe this time it's you who's not happy, and still with the result you're not happy. There is option 2 also. You can appear in the exams, board exams later when things are better. So challenges are there. They are bothering us, bothering parents, bothering students, and now they are bothered about their future. So I think universities are already working on it, maybe a combined test or maybe a new formula that they will come up with. So I'll expect DME also to inform us all on time. What new strategy are you picking up for the students, so that I can share it with my team, my students, and they be a little relaxed. Though we are counseling and we've opened up a platform, it's called Open Drop Up. So anytime, 24 hours, the child can contact us. One or the other teacher is always available. Usually the counselor is available in the daytime, but other teachers are also put on duty. So anytime the child is feeling very depressed or feels like talking to a counselor, can immediately walk in and we call the counselor immediately, the school counselor. That is the small efforts that we are making. And I think in the coming time, we all know these students, they are the students of pandemic year. So we are always going to have soft corner for them today and always. Thank you so much.
Great to know your views, Yogita ma'am. And I'm very happy to see that all of you are sharing your best practices without any inhibitions or without any hesitation. And you're giving very honest and candid replies, because collectively we can smoothen the transition of student from school to college, and their career building and their future stability is a collective responsibility. It is not just the responsibility of the school or only of universities or only of parents. It's together we can, join hands and ensure that this the 2 years pass out student 2020-21, and we have really no idea situation will be in 2020 or 23. That means we all have to join forces and ensure that these passing out batches, they have a career stability and security, and the education doesn't stop, and the transition is as smooth as possible. And with counselors' help also, we are able to soothe down the anxieties and make them more focused on what the bright future holds rather than what is the present situation. So moving on to Taruna ma'am, since all of us are sharing their best practices, we would also like to know from you that, how did you overcome and what new things your school did, what initiatives you took to ensure that your students are taken care, and despite what is outside, they perform very well in their life. So platform is yours, Taruna ma'am.
Happy afternoon. Thank you so much for handing it over to me and giving me an opportunity to be with you all wonderful panelists and hosts. And with me, if you ask, I am heading a school which is in a rural area. I'm not a principal of Noida. I'm heading Ramagir School, Dadri. So it's a rural area. So the challenges were like they had as if something is fallen on my head, and the training of the parents, students, teachers, it was a big challenge for me. But yes, we were all in this together. So this VUCA world has taught us many things, to update and upgrade and learn, relearn and unlearn. If we don't do it, we are not fit for the education world. So we started with training of the children, the teachers, their parents, and motivating the parents to send their children for the online classes was again a challenge. There were many dropouts, right? A lot of absenteeism was there. Then these challenges we try to overcome them by having a drive of donating a device, try to counsel the parents who have extra devices or they are not in use. They can be given to the children who can use those devices. Plus, if you see, I am into a lot of global collaborations because I'm an MI expert and a National Geographic certified educator. So this was, a big platform for my children and for my teachers to learn and to grow online. So what we did was like a lot of project-based learning we did. We had number of projects which were done on Padlets and Wakelet and Flipgrid with the countries all over the world, and the children really learned a lot. I will tell you that there were positive sides of this pandemic and there were negative sides also. But the positive sides, if you consider, the one is contented and motivated. So that is how I think, and I keep on motivating my children and teachers also, that what you have learned, that is the plus point, and forget what is not happening. So I'll tell you, my grade 6 student is such a master of making PowerPoint presentations that even I cannot make such kind of PowerPoint presentations. So that is what these children have learned. They can work on different platforms, and they can share. And we have Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, fixed for our global educators conference, where the children from almost 20 countries join in, and the children share their views. We are into the breakout rooms. The children share their views. The other children also share their views, and that is how they are learning and they are growing. And the parents are also liking this concept of moving out. And otherwise, if this was happening in the school, maybe they would have not known. But now actually they are at home, so they know each and everything what good we are doing for the children. And this strategy is not with the primary or the middle or the senior school. I'm taking up my little ones also, the kindergarten children also, for on this platform, so that they also get the same exposure. They also learn from a mentor who's from Armenia, who's from Russia. She comes down to our class and she takes up the class with the children. So that is one thing which is attracting the parents in that rural area. And the children are also learning, they're absorbing better, because when the mentor or the teacher changes for a day, the children become excited. She comes in into your classroom and she does different activities with you. So that is one big advantage and big attraction for the child to learn. So that is how it is, what strategies we had implemented. But yes, I would like to say that there are many challenges which we are still facing, the teachers, the fee, the money, the money not flowing, the financial crunch for the management. So that is again a challenge. The children not coming to the classes, the burden of the teachers has really increased. I would see that they are also Corona warriors. All hats off to them as well, keeping on, a call away for the parent, for the child, and helping them in learning and unlearning. So yes, but this shall too pass when we are all together, and with the best practices and with best things, we can change the world. And like ma'am said, that the cameras are off of children, that is again a challenge. The children are playing the games behind the camera. In spite of telling them, they are not turning on their cameras. So that is a very big challenge for the teachers. And as educators, we are trying to give our best. But yes, there are challenges which we cannot overlook. And we'll have to think of different aspects by, in promoting these children and, making their report cards and all. We'll have to actually have a set different parameters for bringing them at that level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We always heard about the digital divide between India and Bharat, right? But listening to you, the academic leader, par excellence, I think we can bridge that divide, we can bridge that gap with the innovative practices that you have adopted. You have taken the full advantage of being a National Geographic educationist. And how did you manage to, journey from the shortage of devices, convincing parents, and then giving them the global platform, right? So
Yes.
very well done. I mean, seriously, I'm amazed to hear your experiences. So moving on to the next
Thank
speaker. Thank you, ma'am. So moving on to the next speaker, Indu Yadav, ma'am. We would like to know the academic challenges that have been faced by you, and how did you overcome the same, ma'am?
Thank you so much, Dr. Gautam, and thank you for inviting me over. I'm grateful to the management of DME and everyone associated with it. And, it's really a great endeavor to have organized this conclave. So thank you very much. So I think there are advantages and disadvantages of being the last speaker, amongst the principals. So while, I don't really have much to say because the other speakers have spoken most of the things, which I probably would have thought of, but that also gives me, a platform to kind of elaborate, how we handled the challenges that other speakers have spoken about. But before I kind of delve into it and get started, I just like to make one correction. I think in my introduction, it was said that I was the principal of Lotus Valley Noida. I wasn't. I was the vice principal of Lotus Valley Noida, and I'm the founder principal of Lotus Valley Noida Extension. So here I go then. So, as Seema ma'am started saying, she started her deliberations saying that most of us, we had been kind of dabbling with technology, before the pandemic started, so it was like we all had a foot in the door. Right. But we were all fence sitters, and we were thinking, okay, we will take up technology. We will be, we all knew that IT revolution.
Ma'am, you are on mute. Please check.
Okay. So I was not audible at all, or did I lose out from somewhere? I don't know.
No, you were absolutely audible. For a fraction of a second, you were.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I said, even though as educators, we all knew that IT revolution was right there, we all had been talking about AI and IoT, really, taking the world by a storm. But somehow, we had not really kind of jumped into it. But this pandemic, as Mrs. Avasthi and others also spoke about, came as an opportunity, So I think leaders have to find opportunity amidst adversities. And this is what we did. So we kind of, from the fence sitters, we became e-bosses. We all kind of jumped into it full throttle. And, it was, I would say that this was a rebirth for us educators. All this while, we had been, all of us are experienced teachers, but none of us had really learned. We were never really educated, never trained to teach online. So this was a major shift. And when this challenge came to us as educators, I very strongly feel that one leader cannot really bring about, or handle this kind of adaptive, complex challenge all by herself or himself. You have to navigate this kind of challenge by leveraging the collective wisdom of the entire faculty. There should be a lot of the teachers, parents, and even students, they have to collectively get into it and find out how to move forward. And this is precisely what we did. So leadership was not just one person, the principal. Leadership was many people donning the role of leaders in their own capacity. So this was the first thing that we did, and it really turned out very well. So this was the first phase. And then the next phase came when we had to decide on the platform, and then the lesson plans. Other speakers have spoken about all this, how to use different tools, and nobody was really sure how long this pandemic was going to last. As one of the speakers said, we thought maybe 21 days, and we are going to be back to school, and we are going to be starting, all over again, and we would reteach children what they had been taught online. But this was not to be. So we had to really train our teachers, and extensive training programs were conducted. And thanks to the CBSE, wherein CBSE really helped with Diksha portal and Nishta portal, and my teachers, they attended long hours of training, and myself also. So I think we all became learners when the pandemic started. So then after that, it was really important for us, to kind of modify our academic calendar. We couldn't really go on with the same calendar that we had designed, in March 2020. So we had to really reframe some of the activities that we had to do. how exactly are we going to be formatting those activities? So, the academic calendar had to be relooked at. And then it was really important, as I said earlier, that, no one leader can really do anything all by herself or himself. So we had to really build coalitions. We had to build teams, okay? And then also build that sense of urgency, because it wasn't that, okay, we will do it the way we had been saying that, okay, technology, we would adapt to technology later. So this was an urgent situation wherein we had to get everyone, all hands on the deck. And, like all of you, I also feel very proud of my faculty, my teachers, that they really did a wonderful job and turned the situation around. And then the second phase was, like Mr. Sahni pointed out, in his address, that communication was the key. How to communicate to all stakeholders, that was really important. And communication also, one has to be very careful, how much is important. If you communicate too much, maybe the message gets tuned out. And if you communicate too little, it causes anxiety and concerns. So it was really necessary to find out how much communication was really to be done. But at the same time, it was really important that communication channels had to be kept open at all times. And it was, again, some of the speakers before me pointed out that student engagement has been an issue. So, when many of my students also are sitting here, and we have been talking to them and telling them, not to switch off their cameras, and they have been doing, ghost meetings. But I think, there's a way out of that also. It's by kind of recognizing, appreciating those who are conscientious and who keep their cameras on, so working on positive reinforcement rather than pointing out to those who are not really doing it. So this has worked out, quite well. And I think, we all can try this out. And then it was again important, to have families also engaged, especially for the junior school, wherein children couldn't really take the classes on their own. They were not really grown up enough, to take their classes on their own. So it was equally important to get the families on board. So family engagement also was a challenge, and we were able to come out of that, by constant communication and interaction with parents. And then the next phase came, once all this was settled down, lesson plans and your platform and getting teachers on board. The next phase came when we had to start assessing children, because we all realized that this pandemic was going to go on for long. So how to assess children, because it was important, to see whether there were any kind of learning gaps. So, how to conduct formative assessments, how to use different tools and apps to conduct formative assessments. So this was, again, a challenge which collectively, we overcame, and teachers started doing beautiful assessments, much better than what they had been doing in the in-person classes. And finally, how to take summative assessments and how to correct them. So I think all these have been challenges, which all the other schools also must have faced. And we all really have been able to come out of these challenges and grown as individuals, as educators, and as institutions. And lastly, I think it's been very important, that now this year, when the pandemic continued in 2021, by this year, pandemic fatigue also had set in. You all would agree with me that, last year we all kept thinking that it's going to get over, maybe 2021, the new session is going to be much better, but it was not to be like that. So pandemic fatigue set in, and how to get over that, and how to really keep, the interest and the motivation of children, that was a big challenge. And also socio-emotional domain of children. So while, we all have counselors, and counselors have been conducting sessions and workshops for children, parents, and teachers, Still, I think this is one area which I'm sure we have a psychologist with us here, so who would like to address this issue. But this has been a very big challenge, wherein children are all holed up inside the four walls of their houses, and they don't really have any outlet except the screens in front of them. So it becomes quite difficult for them to socially engage with others, other than screens. So, these are the challenges, I think, which we all have faced, and we all have been able to come out of them. And now we are all looking at, hybrid learning and blended learning, how to really have, these two kinds of learnings incorporated in our teaching learning process. So I'm sure, this is a journey which with everybody's collaboration, we are going to, travel and gain insights and experiences and grow richer. So once again, thank you very much for having me here. And I do hope we have a great discussion after this. Thank you.
Thanks, Sindhu ma'am. And as rightly mentioned, that we are exploring different ways to communicate, different ways to learn and teach together. And despite being teacher and academician for so many years, we are again students and learning a lot of new things. So with this forum, actually, the idea was to have you all from different parts of Delhi NCR. We've invited you very consciously that though we are at Noida 62, we wanted to listen to all of you. So we have a representation from Delhi, Noida Extension, Noida, Saibabad, Dadri. The whole purpose was that the views should come from different geographic areas of NCR region, and to understand what general challenges we all as teachers facing and what innovative ways that you discovered in this journey, which might help each other. Similar experiences, but with every experience, 10 new solutions that we found. And different leaders here with different experiences have come up with their own innovative way to overcome a challenge. So with this platform, we all are also again learning together, discovering new ways, trying to solve similar problems in different methods. Now, moving on to the another dimension of this conclave is to hold a discussion from the aspect of mental and emotional well-being. So Trisha, before I ask a question to you, I'm sharing a very simple experience from the dimension of a parent. So before my daughter learned input-output device, she learned how to log into Zoom, how to enter Google Meet, and how to handle Google Classroom. So though the typical traits of a leader that we've been learning and studying, according to you, in this new generation of the pandemic students and the e-learner students, whether it is young generation, the small children, big children, all of us, what do you see are the emerging leadership traits in this scenario?
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So firstly, yeah, I thank the DME team for inviting me over. Okay. Attending and being a co-panelist here is a real great honor. Okay. So, after listening to this esteemed co-panelist, okay, I, formed out, I had a couple of points in my mind. I again jotted down some more points because I got real life experiences from these academic leaders. Okay. So number one, I think Dr. Seema Malik, she said one thing in the beginning is none of the academic leaders, okay, none of the academic leaders, none of us for that matter, was trained to handle such a kind of a situation. She did mention saying necessity is the mother of invention. Okay, necessity is the mother of invention. Okay, so the first and foremost thing, regarding the emerging trends in the leadership, okay, in the current view of the pandemic, number one should be adaptability. Okay? Adaptability regarding, the ways things have to be executed, adaptability regarding the roles which were previously assigned to different people in the organizations. Okay, probably there would be a little reassigning here and there, a little flexibility, okay, or a little change in the whole decorum and everything. Okay, number one is that should be taken care of in case of such academic setup. Okay. Then again, we talk about one very important thing is that leaders, academic leaders have a different challenge. Okay. The challenge is that they are supposed to be, they are modeling the behavior knowingly or unknowingly. Okay, children see them day in, day out. Okay, teachers see them day in, day out. So people do follow and model their behavior. They are the ones, who get the attention, whether they like it or they don't like it. So once, since this is the scenario, so the best thing they can do is they should understand, okay, what amount of motivation are they using. Fine. What is the difference between, over motivate, just being after somebody, over motivating, okay, or just, pushing the situation. So in a crux, if I just have to summarize point number 2, I mean to say that finding the thin line difference between when to push and when to pause in the situation. The situation is new for these students. The situation is new for the academic leaders themselves. Okay, they have been very well managing. We've seen them. They've told us their own inspirational stories, right? But still, when to push and when to just hold back. Just the thin line difference between these two things, would mean a lot to the people in the vicinity. Okay. So going ahead, we've always heard about being intelligence, being intelligent, being intellectual, these sort of things when we talk about academic leaders, especially in the academic forums. Okay. There's one thing, which is required in this changing times is being emotionally intelligent rather. Okay. Now, emotional intelligence is a concept, it includes a lot other things. Okay. I'll just pinpoint some of them because these are the very broader concepts. Okay. Probably I won't be able to cover them in the span of time, but I'll just pinpoint some of them. So some things which come under the broader spectrum of emotional intelligence is, self-regulation of emotions. Leaders do get affected, okay, especially academic leaders who deal with children of different age groups, who deal with parents. We saw the esteemed panelists, esteemed co-panelists talking about parents continuously calling them, children calling them, they're getting calls from here and there. How are things going to materialize? What's going to happen? How is the evaluation going to take place? Okay. So number one, these academic leaders need to take care of their mental health by self-regulating their emotions. Okay. Regulation of emotions will help them to identify their triggers, okay, identify their, points at which they drop down, okay. Take a pause when they drop down, rest adequately, take breaks, avoid those burnouts, and then come back to work, then work accordingly. Okay. Another aspect within the emotional intelligence spectrum is, motivating. Okay. Motivating others, how do we motivate others? Okay. Now, the last speaker, Miss Indu Yadav ma'am, she spoke about something known as positive reinforcement. Okay. So now positive reinforcement is, we appreciate the good things. Positive reinforcement is the agenda behind that is, I want the good behaviors to increase. So I appreciate the good behaviors. I am not bothered about the bad ones or the ones I don't like or the ones I don't want to grow in the child. Okay. So now when it comes to positive reinforcement in a virtual setup, how do we do it? When the staff is in a virtual meeting, when everything is going on virtually, we appreciate the micro gains. Okay, we appreciate the small steps we have taken. That means we divide the task into steps so that there is a lot of opportunity for you to appreciate the other subordinates, for you to appreciate the other people working with you. When it was a physical setup, okay, when everyone was there, okay, sometimes probably you missed out on appreciating or the other person missed out on informing some micro steps. That was fine. Right now, the setup needs more of connectivity. Okay, the setup needs more of motivation. So how do you find out these loopholes for motivation? You divide things into steps and then again reinforce them, praise them for those micro little gains. Okay, so that all of them are in the loop and stay connected and you work very efficiently. Okay, so there are a couple of other things as well, being empathetic. Okay, now we are suddenly expecting a lot from the academic leaders, emotionally intelligent bhi ho jayenge, we'll do this, we'll do that. Okay, so now being empathetic also, requires that level of emotional resources. Okay, being empathetic is very, is different from being sympathetic. You sit down, you get into the shoes of the people working with you, you try and understand their problems. This is being empathetic. Okay, at the same time, the academic leaders, as I said, also require the previous part, which is self-regulation. Until and unless they have self-regulated their own emotions, motivating, reinforcing, being empathetic will not be as transparent or as genuine as we want them to be. Okay, we cannot expect all the cognitive and emotional resources from somebody without giving them that chance, that platform, or that opportunity to vent out or just come out of that zone. sort of recharge and come back. Okay. So all these things have to be done, but please remember, in the background, you're supposed to self-regulate first. Only then you will identify properly, you'll interpret their emotions, you will interpret their problems, and then you will respond accordingly. You'll respond adequately, because we are in a virtual setup. We are in a different setup. Okay. We have adapted. It's been quite long. It's been more than a year now. All of us have adapted, but then whatever loopholes, okay, whatever constraints this virtual setup has, should be taken care of each and every time. And again, how do you do that? You remain connected, appreciate micro things, okay? Given the fact that you have self-regulated, you have taken care of your burnout issues and everything. Okay. Coming to something else, something else which I
Ma'am, please unmute, Ms. Walia. Yes,
okay,
yes.
okay. How long was I unmuted?
Fraction of a second.
Okay. I'm so
Don't
sorry.
worry.
Yeah, I didn't realize. Yeah. So I also summarized some other pointers. One other pointer was that one of the other co-panelists happened to mention about something as resilience. Okay, now what do we actually mean by being resilient? Okay, being resilient means accepting that not everything in a dynamically changing external environment is under your control. Okay, when the school setup was normal, when the school setup was a physical setup, okay, you could see things, you could do things, communication was better, everything was different, right? So in a changing dynamic, in a changing environment, okay, in an externally changing environment, do not over expect from yourself. Okay, understand that you require help, understand that you require a team, understand that you require inputs, understand that only then can you summarize and present it and give your expertise on the matter. Okay, so resilience includes taking help. Resilience includes that you realize that there are certain pointers where you need help, there are certain areas where you adequately need help. Okay, you cannot manage everything on your own, and resilience means understanding everything, understanding these pointers very nicely, and then bouncing back very carefully, very 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 adequately, very energetically, taking control of everything. Okay, one cannot take control of things until and unless we have accepted, identified the loopholes in the problem. Okay, a leader becomes a leader by being transparent. Okay, resilient leaders who are emotionally intelligent leaders who are adaptive, okay, leaders who are empathetic. These leaders have many stories to tell. We did hear some stories already from the panelists, right? So this is just a summary of what they were trying to reflect from their stories. Fine. And some other techniques, which some other traits which should be there in the leaders, given the pandemic setup is let's not be hyperactive regarding the situation. Okay, I need to sort this, I need to do that, I need to take goals. Take realistic goals. Okay, take goals which can be covered, take goals which are done, so that you also feel that positive reinforcement part. You are being continuously given tasks, you are being continuously given the charge, and you are continuously reinforcing and praising the other people. But what about you? Okay, deep down everyone requires appreciation, deep down everyone requires at least a thumbs up, to go ahead, to work continuously. Okay, so when it comes to work, don't be hyperactive about it, don't take too much of work, and don't be passive. Find a safe middle ground. Ultimately the tortoise wins, right? So find a safe middle ground. Okay, so that you can keep on working and be there all the time. Okay, also since that your staff, the people, the other teachers, everyone in this academic setup is undergoing a lot of personal stress as well. Okay, I'm sure every school and every other organization is organizing mental health workshops, is organizing some mental health camps where these people can come up and speak. Okay, we also got to know about a 24/7 counseling setup where queries can be posted day in and day out, and somebody takes charge of it even at the night. Okay, we got to know about it in the discussion a little while ago. So these sort of things could be organized where the people can come to you. Okay, can reach out to you. Fine. And a sort of transparent environment is there where if somebody probably requires certain offs because of something happening in the background, one or the other, unfortunately one or the other members in the family suffering from COVID. Okay, so they can They can take certain offs and other people can take over from them. Okay, so creating such a creating such a cooperative environment, creating such a transparent environment. Okay, but yes, last but not the least, my one trait and one thing, you know, which should be there is self-regulation and taking care of one's own mental health and well-being, so as to you do not fall prey to burnout. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Walia, for expressing your views. Now, I would like to ask Mr. Ravikant Swami, sir. Sir, you are representing one of the premier institutes in Delhi NCR. We would like to know how are you grooming the future leaders in DME so that they are ready to face the future in these uncertain times once they are out of the campus?
As far as grooming the leaders are concerned, indeed, since my college runs law courses, media courses, and management courses, so we do have students who have now occupied leadership positions. Indeed, it was a difficult time. It has been enumerated a lot about that this afternoon. I will be specific about my college. The first thing which I faced was E-attitude. Means E-attitude is something which all of us are trying to fight. It's the biggest challenge. I'll give you an example to explain what this means. Say, for instance, I'm talking with a parent, and after a 5 to 7 minute discussion, I say that, okay, let us meet and discuss. This is what I mean by E-attitude. It means I could not conclude the discussion unless I met that person. So this is the major challenge which all of us are facing, that we need to conclude in the digital way. It's not that half of the part is done digitally and then the final round is done physically. So this is one thing. Another thing which I faced here is very specific, and I call it the expectation challenge. Because my college is the only college in this area which is affiliated with IPU. So people have a lot of expectations. Because IPU is a NAAC A-graded university, so when people admit their students in my college, they admit with a huge set of expectations. And means reaching those expectations in a digital manner was another challenge which my college faced. It took us time to overcome these challenges, and I believe we have only partially overcome those challenges, yet to fight more. As far as CBSE is concerned, I think there are two sides of the story. One, that CBSE should have conducted the exams, for the reason that CBSE is known as a superpower when it comes to conducting exams. Like CBSE has been conducting JEE, an exam in which the number of students appearing is almost the same, which is there in 12th class. I believe in 12th class around 12 lakh students are appearing. They generally appear. And at JEE also the number is same. So if JEE can be conducted in an online manner, why not the CBSE 12th exam can be conducted in an online manner? So I believe CBSE should have maintained its image of a super exam conductor and should have taken the exam in an online mode. But then there is other side of the story. And that story says that exams do not evaluate a child completely, because exam evaluates the knowledge part only. What about the skill part? What about the attitude part? And if exams would have evaluated a student in the best possible manner, then college dropouts would not have succeeded, or even school dropouts would not have succeeded. Forget about Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg. They are old examples. Come to the Indian scenario. Let us talk about Ritesh Agarwal, OYO, Rahul Yadav, Housing.com, Kailash Khatkar, Quick Heal Technologies. All these are college dropouts, which simply means that examination is not a complete setup for evaluating a child. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And every day there's a new challenge which together as a team we are overcoming, learning in that process, and moving on with more determination to ensure that the teaching learning continues. And as one of the panel members rightly pointed, that we are also equally formidable Corona warriors, because Just like banking didn't stop and health sector didn't stop, education never stopped. It continued despite whatever is happening in the outside world. So with this forum now set, we are now moving on to the specific question answer to the panel members. And together with Shalini ma'am, I'll be mentioning the name of the panel member and to whom I'm addressing that question. Humble request, since we are running out of time, that we'll request you to keep your answers very precise and at the same time helpful, so that the students who are with us, they are able to gain most out of it. So the first question of round 2 is to Ms. Seema Malik ma'am, representing Salwan Public School from Delhi. So ma'am, while we were thinking that 2020 is challenging, 21 will be better, now we have all understood that 22 and 23 is equally challenging for us, and we don't know what situation will be. So what do you suggest should be the kind of changes in internal assessment, or how can we strengthen the internal assessment process to ensure that the board results, whenever the government announces, we are able to adapt in a more better way with internal assessments? So what should be the future structure of internal assessment structures at schools?
Dr. Purva, as you rightly mentioned, that the present crisis in 2021 seems to be continuing. And since there is no precedence earlier, so we have no idea. It will be absolutely futile to compare the present scenario with the 1 century back Spanish flu, because that time the technology was missing, medical facilities were not there, research had not taken place as much as it does now. So what happens tomorrow? We have absolutely no idea. But one thing we know, and that is adaptability is within us. That is a key. Therefore, the examinations also have to adapt now, keeping in mind the long-term prospects of the child, because many children are bound to universities outside the country. And there also, it will be very imperative for them to understand how the child has fared. So what we can do is that the examination system, CBSE or any other board for that matter, will have to make their assessment pattern in such a way that it is objective on one side, but very exploratory, very perceptual, very visionary on the other side. It is not enough to just make multiple choice questions to ensure that there's a fair and transparent assessment. What we also need is that the questions which are asked, are they high order thinking skills questions? Are they making the child think about the concept? Sometimes, a board question, board exam question, which might be of 8 or 10 marks, if there is a very good question paper making person, he could make the same question in just one MCQ. It all depends upon the excellence of the question paper. One, that is important. Second, we have to now invest, all schools, in either good softwares or upgrading our technological infrastructure. For example, some of my illustrious panelists earlier said that they don't know, were there any unfair means used in the exam? Nobody knows. And we don't want to do name calling. And we don't want to bring down the child's self-esteem. So what we can do? We can think about those softwares when the children attempt questions or papers on those softwares. The software automatically shuts down when there is a particular time lapse. Because give time to the child to continue to go from one question to the other. Give them opportunity to revisit the question paper once, but there are n number of ways where technology can come to our aid. Hasn't it already? In flipped learning, in blended learning, in hybrid learning, and in all kinds of tools that we are using, everything is becoming so technologically enabled. So this is the time now, Dr. Purva, to look at assessments with a new, fresh set of eyes, with a new perspective, which can serve the purpose for the next many years to come. That's my take on the assessment pattern. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I think all the students here should be happy to look at the fresh perspective on the examinations. Now, with the paucity of the time, I will quickly move to our next question. The next question is to you, Ms. Indu Yadav, representing Lotus Valley School. So, ma'am, I would like to ask you, it has been observed that the students who are studying in the board classes, whether 10th class or 12th class, they tend to take the internal exams by the school slightly, because the marks of the internal exams are not going to be included in the final exams. So they think that they will put the maximum efforts in the final board exams. And now we have seen that the things have changed. Internals are equally important. So now to many of the students, about 100 students who are sitting here, what is your message? What is your advice to all of them?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Now, I feel that we have to look at learning differently. We don't have to, as students, as teachers, educators, management, we all have to look at learning in a way that it's not just for passing an exam. It is learning for life, okay? Learning to be future ready. So if we look at learning like that, then it is going to be continuous. It is going to be for, as somebody had pointed out, it's not just going to be for, scoring 90%, because we have seen in many cases that there are a whole lot of children who get about 95%. But when you get down to talking to them, you realize, that there is something amiss, they are not all there, they can't really think on their feet. So we have to relook, the entire learning teaching process. If we look at learning as a preparation for life, okay, wherein children would acquire skills, attitudes, and knowledge, I think then they are going to be taking, their internal assessments also as seriously, not really depend on one exam, which would either make or mar, their life. So if they are acquiring knowledge, if they are acquiring skills and attitudes, right attitudes, I think they would be able to pass any exam in life. So my simple advice to children would be that be regular, okay, and be present and enjoy the entire process without really worrying about what the result at the end of the term would be. So if you are enjoying the process, if you are acquiring these skills and attitudes and knowledge, I can assure you, you will pass any exam with flying colors. Thank you.
Thanks, Indu ma'am. And that's definitely a very important takeaway, that we don't need an end-term exam to tell us how we have learned in 1 year. It has to be a continuous process, and regularity and discipline does play an important role here. So I have a question to Taruna ma'am, which I just received from a student, because we have a lot of 12 students who are right now with us. So one of the child wants to know that the committee decision is not yet out on the parameters of evaluation. We are still waiting for it. But as principals, how will you ensure that transparency and fairness is there in evaluating based on the criteria? Because a lot of times students have this inherent fear that we didn't get the fair treatment.
See, a very good question, which the child has really come up with, that yes, the transparency, how will we manage to be transparent with each and every child? But yes, what I suggest is, see whether this is, it's just a suggestion, that what we feel that we create, at times we are creating bookworms who are studying and, they are just learning and just puking it out. So we should have a platform where we can have group discussion and take out, the street smart and the knowledge, how much knowledge. This group discussion can be on a Zoom platform, on a Teams platform. It depends on the school to school, and we can judge that how much have they understood the topic and how much they know about, how much knowledge they have about the content, how much they know, how much they have researched, and how have they learned, how curious they are, and how have they, worked on that particular topic. That is one way of being very, very transparent in the class, where you can have this kind of a discussion, and we can take out the best of the child. So that is one suggestion which I can come up with. Yes, Indu ma'am.
So if I may add, so here, if we can share with children about the success ladder and the learning criteria. So we all talk about Bloom's taxonomy, and we all talk about, how we have to really go up to the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy. So if children are familiar with the success criteria, how exactly are they going to be evaluated? I think, this would bring in a lot of transparency.
Very well said, ma'am. It's very true that one has to understand that what is the criteria of success. It is not that what you are learning and you're just getting 95% marks and 99% marks. That doesn't call up about success. Success story is something different. The confidence, the knowledge you've acquired, that is what is important for me, actually, if you ask me as a head. Thank you.
Thank you, Taruna ma'am. Thank you, Indu ma'am, for your valuable suggestions. I think you have made the very valid points that knowledge is something which cannot be just assessed with a 3-hour exam under so much of stress. It is much beyond that. And success is also not just by scoring 90% or 95% marks in 12th board, right? So with this, Alka ma'am, I would like to ask you that after hearing the views regarding the assessment from Taruna ma'am and Indu ma'am, I think this is such a sensitive issue that we would like to ask your views also, that what should be the optimum assessment criteria for the 12th standard students, so that none of the students group would feel disheartened or would feel cheated, and everyone should be fairly assessed.
I would just thank you first of all for asking this question, but I would just like to start, with an old saying that I heard once, which said that one can, with difficulty, defy the effects of bad teaching, but escaping the impact of bad assessments is an onerous task indeed. So I would say that for this particular year, when the government decision came to cancel the class 12 board examinations in the backdrop of the devastating impact of the pandemic and the public outrage, it came as a relief to thousands of anxious students and their parents. But like you said, all the children and of course the teachers and all of us, we started wondering on the parameters on which the children should and would be assessed and marked this year.
Alka ma'am, please check your audio device. Accidentally got muted, but we've been listening to you.
Okay, all right. So see, like I said, CBSE has already started working on finding us the assessment criteria for class 12 this year. Well, if you ask me, I personally feel that the marks obtained in the class 10 boards and in the internal assessments and practical examination in class 12 should be looked into. And fortunately, most of the CBSE schools have already conducted their practical examination and have uploaded the results also. And when there were, we did hear people say that we can assess the students on the basis of their class 9 and 11 results also. But then I personally feel that not much would be gained by assessing, performances in classes 9 and 11, as students in these grades, they tend to be more focused on honing, their co-curricular skills and of course, the social networking that happens. So for objectivity, fairness and transparency, the results of a particular school may be required and can be vetted by a partner school, to definitely get an objectivity, fairness, and transparency. But what Seema Malik ma'am was asked, and what should be, what should we think for future? I personally feel that we need to have a renewed assessment and evaluation system in our schools, they need to be objective, and attempts should be made to integrate regular in-house examinations with additional parameters of assessment such as communication abilities, critical thinking, creativity, ability to use knowledge for problem solving, as well as collaborative, social, and citizen skills. And I would just like to end it up with one more sentence. I will not take much of your time, but then an attempt has to be made to integrate periodic and continuous evaluation with ungoogleable questions. Google Baba, we've witnessed in the last maybe. So ungoogleable questions which focus more on critical thinking, creativity, and problem solving and decision-making skills, they need to be paid more attention. And I would just say that, of course, let us all, let all educators, all leaders, and everybody in the education system create an assessment system that is underlined by expertise and ethics of trust. So, like you said, children are a little worried, how are we going to justify and whether they will get, the proper grades or not. Well, I always say the assessment needs to be based on the ethics of trust. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Alka ma'am. Basically the examination just begin with board exam, and life is full of so many more exams yet to come. This is just the first exam they have to appear. So I've received one question in the chat box, and the question is for Aman sir. Sir, one student is specifically asking, he says that though my principal ma'am is soothing out my fears that I need not worry, but ultimately I have to move out of school and have to look out about my higher education. So he would like to know, sir, specifically that how as colleges and universities, like you representing higher education, so how are we helping them in these colleges to overcome this challenge of board exam and to ensure that they get right career move after school? So maybe you could help him.
Well, I mean, navigating through the admission process at the best of times is full of anxiety. It's not an easy job. So I do offer my sympathies to all students of class 12. After 1 year of lockdown, which I'm sure everyone would have imagined would be the final year in school, at school, which they've been deprived of. This is again not ideal at all for them. I mean, it wasn't going to be ideal either ways. They say that to correct for past injustice, there must be future injustice, and I feel that is something that will be carried out. There will be some level of injustice done to students. I'm sure many will feel that they've been hard done by with whatever decision comes across, whatever they have to deal with. What I would suggest for the future, not for you immediately, first for the future, is that colleges, universities, especially state universities, they've been formed with the objective of providing education to students of a particular state or a community or region. And unfortunately, we're not able to do that in times of need, real need. This is a crisis situation and time for the entire community to come together. And being the educational institutions of the community, I don't feel that we're adequately ready in terms of the rules and regulations to help you in the manner that I feel we should. For example, we should be able to admit students who want admission, who are seeking admission, and who want us, and we are happy to take them, but we're not able to, and we won't be able to for a long time to come. So there are a lot of problems associated with this. One of the other issues is that we make decisions at a particular time, and the implementation of those decisions is at a time where the playing field has changed completely. We've decided to not conduct exams, and it could well be the situation that we are deliberating this situation. We're doing all this for a few weeks, a month or 2 months, and we're in a situation where actually exams could have been conducted very smoothly. But then I feel what we should do as higher education institutions, as departments of higher education, as governments, as courts. Unfortunately, a lot of this is done by courts. So is just be prompt so that students are not left hanging. Students are not left making bad decisions because of their anxiety, because of the certain uncertainty that they're surrounded by. So what I think we can do is be prompt with the situation, be quick in our decision making, and wherever we can offer admissions. Unfortunately, we are bound by our own chains in many ways, but be prompt, be helpful, be kind, and offer information as much as we can, so that students are not left in the dark. And whenever they reach out to us, have a help desk as we normally do, and basically just sort out any kind of doubts that students have. But if we are able to do this in a very time-bound manner, which we really should, given that these are very important decisions to make. There are a lot of people, lakhs of students who are wasting away their time month after month. If we're able to tackle this in a time-bound manner and as fair a way as possible, that will be, I think, the best we can do. Like I said earlier, there will be some amount of injustice invariably, and the idea should be to minimize that and move ahead as quickly as possible. My advice to students would be to keep their spirits up, and like was mentioned a little while ago, this is but the start of a long journey, and even if the first step isn't quite to your liking, there will be a lot of time, a lot of opportunities in the coming times. And I'm sure that with the right attitude, you can make good decisions and have a great career ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for expressing your opinion and views on this very, very important issue. I would like to ask you, Ms. Walia, that we have all spoken about the anxiety level of the students because of the examinations and all. But there is another side of the story that, few bright students who must be there in this audience also, they have put in so much of time and efforts to get good scores in the board exams, but now they are feeling frustrated and cheated. They are saying that, okay, the exams are not happening. So they are relieved from their board stress, but there is another stress which is related with their future. So what would you like to tell them?
Okay. So Dr. Shalini, thank you for the question. Okay. So we're talking about a particular set of students, let's say bright students, but I would like to say, talk about the students in general, okay, including the bright students, all students, let's say, okay. So these students have been, as you said in the question, have been in a state of prolonged stress since last almost, let's say, more than a year right now, okay. By now it's more than a year, okay. So they've been in a state of prolonged stress, and now they get the information that, exams are going to, there's no more exams, the exams are cancelled. Fine. Okay. So we need to first understand, okay, we need to first analyze the situation as to what is bringing about the stress. The stress is brought about by uncertainty. Fine. So if I just draw one more drop down arrow and analyze the situation, there's a stress is brought about by uncertainty. But why? What is happening in the background? Okay. So in the background, uncertainty brings about powerlessness. Okay, no grip over the situation, no authority over the situation. Further down, if we go, that means we have no ability or no room or no capacity to plan anything ahead. Okay, this is what is in the minds of these set of students we are talking about. Fine. Now that we have an idea about what's happening with them, what's happening inside their minds, okay? So, some things which these students, I'm sure a lot of students are online, listening. So these students, what they can do is there's something known as mindfulness-based practices. Okay, they can come to me later for, or you can always have other people in the mental health forum to go for. Okay, so the mindfulness based practices which they can adopt. Now, what are these practices? These practices help them stay at the moment. Okay, concentrate, be there, fully aware of the moment. So in the first place, we mentioned that, we spoke about that, they are losing grip over the situation. So the more they are mindful in the situation, some sort of authority they gain. Okay, some sort of control, some sort of, being in the situation, those sort of things they gain. Okay, once this background work is done, once this much amount of work is done, okay, what we can do is, we can, these students, especially, who wanted to prepare for good colleges, top colleges, go and make a career, in the desired field they want. Okay, so, what they can do is they can, you know, prepare a routine sort of a thing. Okay, so let's just say whatever resources, whatever things are there in our hands, okay, based on that, let's prepare a routine, let's prepare a schedule. Now remember, these students, especially the students, remember, you guys are at home. Okay, you guys are at home, so that routine, the routine is not made on the basis of what you were doing previously. Okay, you would make 1 hour this, 1 hour maths, 1 hour science, probably 1 hour geography, that way. So this is not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to take up certain things you think you lack, certain things because of the unavailability of a formal examination. You can't evaluate how much you know, and certain weak areas of yourself. Okay, so weak areas, strong areas, certain things you never questioned yourself, certain things you have a question mark on whether you would want to explore them or not. Make certain list of all those things. Okay, incorporate certain hobbies. Okay, so basically you need to have certain strong areas, as in you need to make a schedule by the principle of, mastery and pleasure. Okay, so you feel good after following that schedule because you have expertise, you are a master in certain of the items in the list, and then you also derive pleasure out of it. And in between you can include things, supposedly you're preparing for a typical college, supposedly you're preparing for some other things, supposedly you are preparing to go out of the country. Okay, so based on those things, some of the preparations can be included in the routine. Okay, that way you take up new tasks, that way you take up tasks which you already have a grip on, that way you take up tasks which you are weak on, and at the end of the day or the end of the week you do feel good. Also, these tasks should be divided weekly. Do not take tasks on hourly or daily basis. We all are at home, so a lot of things are happening. Sometimes we don't feel like. Okay, so once you take targets which are set weekly or something like that, you know that you've wasted a Thursday, so there's always a Friday to cover up for it. Okay, you do feel responsible that let me just use the Friday since I just wasted a Thursday this time. Okay, so the goal here is to accomplish something by the end of the week. Okay, so that you feel good about yourselves. Okay, another thing is, there are a number of thoughts in your mind. Okay, number of things going on. How will it happen? How will things materialize? What my report card, what my mark sheet will look like now? Okay, none of my siblings, none of my cousins, none of my people I know had a mark sheet ever like that. What does it look like? Okay, I'll just ask you not to keep on googling things here and there. There are correct authority to go to, there are correct websites to go to, visit them. Okay, and wait for them to materialize things and inform you adequately. Okay, there's no point. See, students these days have access to more things than we ever had. Okay, so based on that, they do this, then they form all sort of things. Okay, then they have these thoughts, and then based on these thoughts they react. Okay, what students are doing is they are reacting based on thoughts. Your reaction should be based on reality rather than on thoughts. Okay, so in case you feel, okay, you might also feel out of anxiousness, out of stress, you might feel that you are there's a spiral of thoughts and you're not able to come out of it. Start writing these thoughts down. Okay, and on the other side of the page, make a column. On the other side of the page, write the reality to it. Okay, just when you do this simple exercise of writing supposedly 2 to 3 thoughts you are having which you don't know, what if thoughts. Okay, and then the realities, you understand that you are reacting on the basis of certain thoughts, certain assumptions which you don't know might change, and you are not reacting on the basis of the reality. The reality is you are yet to get a what your report card looks like. You're yet to get a proper methodology. You will get it definitely. Okay, it's going to be very transparent and it's going to be a fair one. Okay. And if you still after doing this, if you feel like you're not able to cope up, okay, you're falling into this trap of thoughts and you keep on overthinking, you're dwelling in these negative thoughts, okay, not able to follow a routine, you're not having adequate sleep and all, do contact your mental health practitioner. Okay, do contact, probably you would require therapeutic thing, something like that. Okay, but then do remember there's always all sorts of help available. Okay, do not wait for the situation to be very, very overwhelming. Okay, there's nothing known as now it is overwhelming or now it requires a treatment. With or without symptoms, anyone can get therapy, anyone can seek a maintenance session or something like that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trisha, because this guidance is really needed. And it's our collective responsibility, like I said, to remove and soothe out all the fears these children and parents are having. I have a question asked in the chat window. Ravi sir, this question I will address it to you because I feel that you can provide a very genuine answer to this. The child specifically says that don't mention my name because my principal ma'am is here. And she says that, sir, I was not able to perform well in internal exams because of COVID situation in my family. And I'm expecting not very high percentage in my board exams. So will I get admission in good college? So I'm kind of summarizing it, sir, for you that since you represent university, you represent DME, what weightage you give to board exam results and how do you handle these situations where child is good, but the board exam result is not good? Over to you, sir.
Okay, so what I would like to put it is that there are two kinds of universities in our country. One, the DU category, who totally go by the percentage at 12th. And second is the IPU category. The way they have divided is that DU is for the academic courses and IPU runs the professional courses. So the second category is the IPU category, which says that forget about your 12th score, come and appear in our own entrance. So as far as IP University is concerned, they will go by their own entrance. And as far as that entrance is concerned, the marks which a student secures at 12th, they do not carry any weightage. So that's the advantage. And I think majority of the organizations in this world are moving the IPU way, that they say that 12th is fine, but now let us examine you fresh. So as far as the law courses are concerned, CLAT is there. As far as the journalism or management courses are concerned, IPU conducts its own exam. And if you score well at these exams, forget about your 12th scores. They'll not pull you down. So that's the advantage.
Thank you, sir. Because this is important that children should feel secure that good result or bad result is not the end of their life story, and it is not the end of the career journey. And they are so young and impressionable that they feel that the percentage is going to stick with them throughout their life, which actually really doesn't happen. I read in a newspaper that if every student goes and checks the board results of their own parents, they will be quite surprised. And all of their parents, they are taking care of their family, the senior citizens, children, providing good education to their children. And nowhere their exam results hindered this entire process.
Dr. Purva, can I just quickly make one point here?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, waiting. Yeah.
Actually, a bit amused about this in a healthy way. As one of my earlier panelists also said, we were fine with the result of 65%. And when we got 65%, the entire neighborhood got laddus, that we have done very well. Today, if a parent says that my child has got 65%, it's a matter of shame for the parent, which is very sad. People are getting 99%. There are people who are getting 100% in English. And I always wonder, can you really get English 100% in English or in language? Because there's so much of scope for development and improvement. And when you meet with the people who are 95%ers for taking admission in class 11, You really feel surprised at what the CBSE is doing. But then we are bound by the system. We can't challenge it. The only thing is that we can prepare our students to take up the challenges of the CBSE. That's all that we can do. Just wanted to make this point to you.
Absolutely correct, ma'am, because this is very, and when it comes from you all and your children listening to you, parents listening to you, it really makes a huge difference in their life. And so all of us, be it college, be at our departments, at schools, every day these questions come to us. And then on this platform, we convey this message so openly, honestly and candidly. And the media is also there to cover these points. It reaches out to students, even those whom we are not teaching. It reaches out and makes a difference in a lot of lives.
Absolutely.
So thank you, ma'am. And if anybody else, Indu ma'am or Taruna ma'am, would you like to add something to this? The pressure of board exams, the 12th result, maybe 1 line or 2 line advice from your side before we sum up?
I think, ma'am, the pressure should not be there. The knowledge is very, very important. I have seen children not performing good in grade 12, but they are very successful in their careers. They have gone so high that I have live examples with me. My own brother, he was not at all a good performer in grade 10 and 12, but he's in London. He passed out IIT Kanpur, and he could succeed there. So you cannot predict with the marks of grade 11 and 12.
I think
that is it. That is how I feel. So knowledge is one thing which is very, very important, and you cannot assess a child on the performance or the percentage of grade 11 and 10 and 12.
So I fully agree with whatever Mrs. Malik and Mrs. Kapoor have just said, and also Mr. Swami. I think it's really really good to hear that there are universities here which are not really considering the board results, as the end all of everything, So I think, it really gives a lot of hope to children that in spite of them not really scoring very well in the board exams, there is still light at the end of the tunnel, so they still can do well and they still have options available. And I very strongly feel that marks cannot really decide anybody's future or the kind of abilities that they have. So I think we must have more of these kind of universities like DME, so that children really have avenues open for them, even if they don't really do as well in the board exams as they might have expected to.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, all the panel members. I would like to add on to here is that very consciously we invited you all from different areas of Delhi NCR to get your representation and views and understand the challenges you're facing and the ways and methods within constraints you are developing to overcome these challenges. And our journey won't end here for such sessions. We are soon conducting another session with the principals of the cities around Delhi NCR, like Agra, Mathura, Aligarh, Bulandshahr, Meerut, because we want to reach out to all the academic leaders and understand, even in these cities, because our children are actually very fortunate for having high-speed Wi-Fi's and smartphones and facilities, supportive parents, a lot of facilities and a lot of teachers who are going out of way to help them. But we will also be reaching out to smaller towns and cities, going deeper and further into this topic to understand that academic leadership, how it is emerging in these cities and how well we can help out and reach out students even in these cities and nook and corner of UP as well. So thank you for sharing the forum and being very candid, honest, sharing your personal experiences as well. I'm handing over the forum now to Dr. Seema ma'am for an official vote of thanks to all the dignitaries here. Thank you.
And I would just like to share one thing. We have shared the attendance sheet for all the students, for all the participants in the chat box. Please fill in the same while Seema ma'am is saying the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Very important
Yes, you are
question of
audible.
the century. Yes, you are audible.
Thank you so much. Once again, I'm there. I'm Dr. Seema Mam, Associate Professor for DME Management School. And I'm the head for placements and internships also. Was making sense to me that students are around. And I'm really humbled and honored to present this vote of thanks today. I extend my gratitude to all the eminent speakers who graced the occasion for today's MDLC. All the speakers are strong academic leaders who are nurturing the leaders of the future. So despite this pandemic, the education and career hasn't taken a pause because of all the leaders around. And it was so wonderful to hear from all of you. If I emphasize on starting with Aman sir, how he emphasized on communication channels and how strong the communication channels ought to be. Then coming to Seema ma'am, where she said that necessity is the mother of innovation. Yes, rightly put across. How we move on to Alka ma'am, where she said that, PD, that was the development part was important, though the students miss their school friends, but how adapted and adopted made a lot of sense. Then moving on to Yogita ma'am, where she said, late sitting together and teachers cooking and, doing all the things. It was more like, sounded like a motherly, because I'm also a mother of a teenager for 10th standard student. So I really got overwhelmed with all that. How teachers have really taken, that extra mile and helped all the parents, teachers, and students to come across in this pandemic. Then she also spoke about ICANN and open dropout for students round the clock. Really appreciable, and I myself personally was quite overwhelmed by all this. Then coming to Taruna ma'am, how she said that rural area mein how she managed to donate those devices and giving that global exposure to her students from all across the all the right from the nursery school student to the the senior one. She rightly said that this shall also pass. Definitely it shall pass. It's taking a longer time, but I guess we are coming out of it. We together are coming out of it, in a positive way. As Indu Yadav man said that, talking about in artificial intelligence and how leaders have become e-bosses now. So online extensive training, and how she said that on the Diksha portal, all the teachers together, they, got training and they started building their own teams. And definitely she made a valid point, was that there was a sense of urgency there when it came. So we as teachers, yes, we had to gear up our, I think, shoes and get up and do it. We could not wait for that, pandemic to take recourse on us, or we taking care. Definitely we took care of our families and everything, but at the same time there was a sense of urgency instilled by our leaders in each one of us. And she also spoke about positive reinforcement for students and that pandemic fatigue with which we all are going through together. But I guess all these thoughts which are coming from everybody around, it's creating a lot of positivity, and together we can is what is coming to my mind here. Then moving on to Trisha ma'am, I mean, she's an expert on it, and she said adaptability to be taken care, and when to push and when to pause. So that was something well taken, ma'am. Thank you. And she talked about emotional intelligence. I am I teach human resource management to my students. Yes, I do talk about emotional intelligence, but here talking about emotional intelligence pertaining to the teachers, to the leaders across, avoiding burnouts, we have to take care of ourselves and get motivated. Take those micro steps which we have been taken and get appreciated for those. Then she also talked about goals which should be realistic. Then that came to my mind from strategy, that we need to have smart goals. So, and not to be hyperactive, middle grounded, and be there all the time. Because if we run fast, we get tired faster. That was my takeaway for this. Then coming to Sir Dr. Ravikant Swami, he talked about the challenges part, where we talk about attitude, because we cannot meet the people, the parents. So we have to manage this expectation challenge online. I think, and but I think Dr. Swami is doing a great job there also. And yes, we are digitally managing children, teachers, and everywhere else. So I would say that I'm looking forward to meet you all very soon, and I would like to say and request all of you that please treat it as a beginning of our association. So looking forward to, as Purva ma'am said, that we all having you in the forthcoming events, as guests and also as judges. So I hope you will take out time from your busy schedule for all of us. Here, I would also like to thank our Vice Chairman, Mr. Aman Sani, sir, Director DME, Professor Dr. Ravikant Swamy, sir, who are the backbone of the college. And special thanks to our media partners for today's session, Amar Ujala, Dainik Jagran, and Hindustan. Also thank the moderators for today, Professor Dr. Purva Ranjan and Dr. Shalini Gautam ma'am, and all the faculty members of the DMEs. Last but not the least, my special thanks to today's special audience, that is the budding youth, who I'm sure must have thoroughly enjoyed the session and must be having a lot of motivation going ahead and trying to handle this scenario going. I'm sure that you will have a smooth transition from school environment that was the strong and closed environment to a secure college life as well. I can vouch for the life after the college also. And trust me, when we are talking about colleges, yes, you get that secure environment, in this pandemic also. And marks and getting good marks in the 12th standard and having apprehensions about it, I don't think it will go as Dr. Swamy said that you will be having entrance exams. So there's the time to perform. And definitely you have gained, I think, a lot of knowledge. So, and also being the placement cell head for the college, I place it on record that we have been together in the placement team, being able to, place a number of students, and internships. Talking about paid internships in pandemic 2021 and as well as in 2020 there, despite hardships, yes, we did, I think, appreciable job. And that's what I can assure you, that don't get scared or don't get apprehensive about what is going around in the pandemic. Everything is going on. Yes, the medium or the course has slightly changed. So thanks to our Zoom management team for today, and thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everyone.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you, all of
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Bye.
We will be sharing the recording and all the details to you on email. So you'll get all the details. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.